Okay, we are live now. So let's start with week 5 of the App Academy. Welcome to everyone that's just joining in. And yeah, let me open up these comments first. Okay, so usually at the beginning of these streams, we create a new folder for this week's lessons. But I've been told that week 5 continues from week 4 a bit at the beginning. So let's first see what's inside of the lesson. Okay, so it looks like we're going to be building this calculator app here.
We're going to start a new project now to make a calculator app that looks very similar to the iPhone calculator app. Now, as you can see on the screen, I've got my app. This is the actual app that
Okay,
we're
we
going to
all
start
know
to
how a
use. I'm just going
calculator
to
works. Yeah, so I see the confusion some people are having there. You put the calculator app in the same folder as everything else, but you can just start a new week and create that app in there. Sorry, I just had to clear my throat there. Yeah, let's begin by creating a new folder for our new week. We'll head to the course files, create a new folder, and we'll call it week 5. And let's create that calculator.html inside it as well. So in our folder, remember we right click and we select open in terminal. And then we do code and a dot, and that opens it up in VS Code. So just close this welcome screen here, and we'll create a new file here. We'll call it calculator.html. And then in our calculator, we press Shift and 1 to put this exclamation mark, and then we hit Tab to auto-complete the HTML here. Now let's look at what he has in his.
To get started with our app, we're going to build a basic HTML template for it. Now, you can see again basic HTML head body, and inside there I've got a table. I'm not going to go too in depth into the HTML and how this table is built. I'm just going to describe it very quickly because, of course, you've done this before in the previous modules. So if you're looking at this table, I've given it a border of 1. We'll remove this a little later when we start doing our styling. This is just to be able to see the table.
Let's start copying this down. Inside of the body, we want to make some space. We type out the word table and hit tab, and it will create our table tags for us. And then inside of the opening table tag, we want to type border, and I think he set it to 1. Okay, so we have a table with the border set to 1. Let's head back.
In some browsers.
Then he has a
All right,
TR
so
with the
then
TD
I've got
inside it, and the TD has a call
1,
span of 4.
2, 3.
So TR, TD, and this TD has a call span of 4. Let's hover above this call span and see what it does. Doesn't look like we're getting any information here. So let's head back to the video and see what he says.
4, 5, 6 rows. These correspond
Oh, I think I know what it means. Call is column and then column span.
to the rows in the calculator. All right, so this is what the calculator looks like right now. Here's your 6 rows. The first row is obviously the input, and the remainder rows got the numbers and operators and the cancel button, and the final row is a very...
So if you look here in the image he's showing us, I think what call span means is that we're making this first table data, the one that says 0 in it, take up 4 columns, if that makes sense.
Big equals to sign. So that's what's going on in this HTML. So let's look at row 1. Row 1, it's got a column with a call span of 4, and it's got an input box. It's a type text, and it has...
Okay, let's make an input of type text, ID input box, and value 0. So we type the word input and we press tab. The type is text, and then the ID is input box, and the value is 0. And I think that's correct. Yes, let's move on.
has an ID of input box, and it has a value of 0. That means when
For some reason, when we play this in full screen, it randomly pauses.
looking at
It's not me
rows
pausing
2,
it.
3, and 4, these rows are all very similar. So you've got a row with 4 columns, and in each of the columns there's either a digit. Well, the first 3 columns has a digit, and the 4th column has an operator. Now,
Okay, so he has a TR786 and then an X. That's what I hate about building out these HTML skeletons. There's so much boilerplate in it. But let's just get through this. So TR, TD, and I think he has 7. Seven, 8, 9, and then an X. So I'm gonna hold Alt here, and then hold Shift also, and press down, and this will duplicate the line. And I'll do this 3 times, and then we just change the value in here to 8, 9, and X here. And then below that, he has 4, 5, 6, and minus. So what I'm going to do here is select this entire thing here, and hold down Alt and Shift again, and press the down arrow again. And I'll just neaten this up here. And now we can fill in these values here. So it was 4, 5, 6, and minus. Okay, and we'll save that. Let's go back and see what he does.
row 2 and 3 are similar in that sense, 3 digits and then operator, and row 4, 3 digits and an operator.
Okay, so then he has 1, 2, 3, and the plus sign. So let's do this as well. Remember, we just select everything, we hold on Alt and Shift, and we press down to duplicate it. And then we just clean this up. And here we want 1, 2, 3, and then the plus sign. Okay, let's head back and see what's next.
Row 5 is somewhat different from the others in the sense that it has the 0 column which has a call span of.
Okay, so here we have a 0, AC, and the slash. Zero AC and slash, okay. Let's duplicate this again, even though we're only going to need 3 of them. So we duplicate it, we leave some space there, and then let's get rid of 1 of them. And here we want 0 AC, and this one is a slash. And the 0 has a call span of 2.
Of 2. So in other words, the 0 button takes the space of 2 ordinary buttons.
Okay, and then after that is just the equals to sign, which has a call span of 4. So I'm just going to type this out manually down here, TR. In here we have a TD, and then it just says equals to in it. And it has a call span of 4. So let's save this and let's start up our live server to see what this looks like. Okay, so it looks kind of the same as what he has there. And we can even type into this top part. Let me just zoom in so everyone can see. And we can type into this top part. I'm not sure if he's going to correct that later, but we shouldn't be able to type into this top part because someone might type in alphabets here. Let's continue with the video now.
AC and the division sign. And finally, row 6, it has a column with call span 4, and then we have our equals to sign.
Okay, so let's open up those script tags at the bottom here. And we'll just save this and get ready for the next lesson. So now we're doing event handlers. Okay, let's go through the video. I won't explain it myself because there's many ways to explain this.
Now that we've got our HTML in place, we're going to start with the real fun, coding the JavaScript for our calculator app. Okay, to begin with, we're going to need to create an event handler. Now the event handlers will determine what happens when any of the buttons are pressed. Now if you look at our calculator, there are actually 4 different types of buttons here. The one type is our digits, the normal numbers that we're going to be typing in. The second type are the operators. The third is the AC button. I think that stands for all cancel. And the fourth is the equals to. Now each one of these is handled in a different way.
It looks like there's something wrong with the videos today because this video is not unpausing now. Let me refresh and see if that helps.
Determine what happens. The user clicks on a digit button or touches on a digit button, what exactly is going to happen. So let's start by making an event handler for that. The event handler for this one we'll call digit button pressed. And this one will receive a parameter, and that parameter will be whatever button was pressed, or the value of the button that was pressed.
Let's create this function quickly before he moves on. So function, and we'll call it digit button pressed. When you spell it here, remember where you're putting those capital letters and exactly how you're spelling it, because you have to spell it the exact same way when you're using it somewhere. You can't use a capital instead of a small letter, or a small letter instead of a capital. It has to be exactly the same. And yeah, then in here we'll take a digit, and let's open our curly brackets. Let's head back.
Okay, now notice the naming convention again. I'm using camel case, digit, button, press. The B is uppercase and the P is uppercase.
Yeah, so you don't need to copy out exactly how he spells it here, as long as you remember the way you spelled it so that you can type out the exact same thing when you're using it. But you can spell it however you want, or you can even use a different word here if you want. The only thing you can't use for function names are restricted words. So I can't name the function function because there's already a keyword called function. And I also can't name the function like console because console is already a function here. So yeah, you can name it anything except for restricted keywords.
When you're naming a function, you never start the function name with an uppercase letter. You always start the function and variable name with a lowercase letter. Okay, so we've got digit button press. Now what will this event handler do? Obviously, when a user clicks on a button on the calculator, on a digit, that digit appears on the screen. So let's make this appear on the screen. Now remember, our screen is this input box of type text with ID of input box. So that's where we're going to display the button that was pressed. So we'll use our good old friend document.getElementById.
Okay, let's do this document.getElementById. And I don't think that button even has an ID on it right now. Oh, it does have an ID. Let's copy that. And we need our quotes here and we'll paste it in.
And we'll call this guy's ID input box dot value. We set his value to.
Okay, let's do dot value. And the reason why we're using dot value here and not dot inner HTML is because this is an input box. So for input box we use dot value. If it was an h1 or a p tag or something, we'd use dot inner HTML.
Whatever is the value of button. Good. So we've got the event handler.
So we named our button digit here. We must use the same word here.
Let's create the event, the on-click event, starting with the guy on the top left, which is 7. On-click is equal to digit pressed, and we pass this one a 7. So let's see what's happening here. A user
And the video got stuck again. Something is wrong with IT Varsity today.
receive that 7 and display it. Click event, starting with the guy on the top left, which is 7.
Let me see if I can zoom in like this.
On click is equal to digit button pressed, and we pass this one a 7.
Okay, so all he's doing here is calling the function up here, the same one we created. So on click, and let me just copy the name from down here so we don't misspell something. I'm going to copy it and paste it into here. And then we open up our brackets here and we pass 7 in. So again, this 7 here is what's going to replace digit here and here, and then the value of the input box is going to be equal to 7. So let's save this and let's go test it out even. I press 7 here, now it says 7 there. But notice if we continue hitting 7, it doesn't keep adding 7s here. So let's see if he fixes that.
So let's see what's happening here. A user clicks on 7, it fires off this event, on click event, which calls the event handler function, digit button pressed, and passes it a 7. The event handler function receives that 7 and displays it into the input box. Let's try this out. Let's refresh. When I click on the 7, it should display in the display window. There we go. Now in a typical calculator, as you click on the digits, they appear on the screen. So the more 7s you click, they should appear on the screen. But as I'm clicking the 7, nothing seems to be happening. We'll figure out why later. Let's put in another event handler. Okay, let's fire off again the on click.
Okay, so you get the idea here. He's going to do on click on all of these, all of the digits, not the multiplication signs. And yeah, let's do this. Let me just copy this while we're at it with the space as well. And I'll show you why I'm copying that space as well. Usually if we just copied the text here, we'd have to click into each of these and then leave a space and then paste. But since we copied that space as well, we can skip one of the steps by just clicking in here and pasting. And since we copied the space as well, that will automatically come here. So remember, we're only doing this for the digits, not the X and the minus. He might do it for that as well, but let's go through it with the video. And let's fill out all of these correctly. Okay, let's head back and see whether he adds it to all or what he's doing first.
Just copy this guy and paste him in there. Alright, on click is equal to digit button pressed, and here, no surprises, we put in an 8. While we are at it, let's do the same for the 9. Don't forget to change the parameter to 9, to whatever corresponds to the output. Okay, let's save this, refresh our browser. Okay, it seems to be working. Something is going right, but something is wrong. Now, what's going wrong?
So the error we're having here is that we're setting it equal to digit here in the function. And when you set something equal to something else, it removes the previous value from it. So now we're setting it equal to 7, and then when we hit 8 here, we're setting it equal to 8, so it doesn't matter what's in it right now, it's going to get rid of it and set it equal to 8.
Wrong is that every time I type in a digit, it's replacing whatever is on screen at the moment. So when I type a 7 and then I type an 8, the 8 is actually replacing the 7. But in a normal calculator, what will happen? The 7 will remain, and then the 8 will come in after the 7.
The one error I
The
see
9.
it doing here is if we do plus equals to, let me just show you that. And we reload this page. It's going to say 0 here. And if we hit 7, it's going to say 0, 7. So for some digits, we wanted to add the rest on. But if it starts with the 0, we wanted to get rid of that 0 first. So let's see how this guy solves that problem. And let me get rid of that plus sign I added there.
Will come in after that if I had to click it. So every subsequent digit that you click is supposed to follow the first digit. So that's what's going wrong with our app. Now, how do we fix this? Very simple. We fix this by remembering what's currently on screen and then adding the new button or concatenating. Remember, we used string concatenations before. Concatenating the new button to what's already there. Going back to our code, we start by creating a new variable. We're going to call this variable current value. And this one is going to store whatever is currently displayed in the input box. So we're going to get the value that's stored inside input box.
Okay, so let's first get that value. We'll do here let current value, and we'll set it equal to document.getElement by ID, and the ID will be the same one that we're getting down here. And let me leave a space between these two lines to make it a bit neater, and then dot value here.
And store it inside current value. Okay, and then when we are outputting, instead of outputting just what the user has pressed, we're going to output the value that's stored in current value first, and then what the user has pressed. So for example, if the user has already pressed for the first time the digit 7, then when the user clicks on the next digit, let's say the user clicks on 9, then what's going to be output is 7, 9. So right there we put in current value and the concatenation operator.
So let's add these two values together down here. So current value plus and the digit we took in. Let's save this and test it. And see, again, it's working, but it's keeping that 0 there.
And then button. Okay, let's see what's going to happen now. Save this and head to the browser. Back in the browser, let's try it out. 7. Okay, there's a 0 that remained there. We'll fix that later. 8, 9, 7, 8, 9. Now as we continue to press these digits, they will continue to appear on the screen. But the problem, one little problem is that the 0 needs to disappear. So when we start again and refresh our browser, you'll remember that we are displaying the 0 there to begin with. In the very first instance, when the calculator appears, The 0 needs to be there, but the 0 needs to disappear the moment we click on the first digit.
Okay, so now let's head to the next lesson.
We're going to start off by creating a new variable. Now look where I'm actually creating this variable. I'm creating it outside of the function, which means that this is going to be a global variable. And we're going to call this one new line. And we're going to set its value to true. Now, new line is a Boolean type variable. A Boolean type variable can have the value either true or false. And these are extremely useful in a lot of...
So this Boolean that he's talking about here is the same thing we do in if statements. So in an if statement, when you type something like if 2 is equal to 3, when that thing gets calculated, it actually returns a Boolean value of true or false. And that's how the if statement knows if it's supposed to run or not. So if statement only runs if the statement inside it is true, and it doesn't run if it's false. And when you do something like 2 is equal to 3, it will return false, and then the if statement will check that false, and it will say now I can't run.
of scenarios like the one we're about to see. Now let's go back inside our event handler function. We want to say to this function that if new line is set to true, then when the next button is pressed, blank everything out. We can do that very easily. Let's leave some spaces here and
Let's create this new line variable first. So remember, we do it up here outside the function. We do let new line is equal to true, and then inside of the function here, let's leave some space, and let's go see what he does.
put in an if statement. We're going to say if new line is equal to true. Now the one great thing about...
So here we were saying if new line is equal to true. Remember what I said, the if statement returns true or false anyway. So here we're just plugging in true automatically. We don't need to say if it's equal to true. So we can say if new line. And what this will do is, we don't need to say equal to true here or equal to false or whatever. This already has true or false inside of it. So if this is set to true, then this if statement will run. If this is set to false, the if statement won't run. We don't need to check anything here. I hope that makes sense to everyone.
Boolean functions is that you don't really need to put in the equals to true. You can just say this. This is shorthand. If new line. What this actually means, this is shorthand for if new line is equal to true.
And also here, if you put a different variable here, like let's say it wasn't a Boolean true or false, it was a string or something. What this would do is it would run the if statement if there's some value inside of that variable, but if there's no value inside of it, then the if statement wouldn't run. So doing it this way is also a good way of checking if the variable has a value inside of it.
Then what do we do? Then we simply output whatever the user has typed in. Look what I'm about to do. So we're going to set that value to whatever is the value of button. else. This means,
okay, so let's go type this out first. So if new line is true, then we want to set document.getElementById, and again it's that same ID from your input box. Dot value is equal to digit. And I suppose we're going to do else here and contain these within the else.
line is not true, then only then will we do all of this.
Okay. So we do else here. We open up our curly brackets and we make some space. And then let's copy this, or cut it with Ctrl X, and we paste it in here with Ctrl V. And now look, everything is like messed up here. So I'm going to press Alt, Shift and F, and it will format everything. So let's save this. And yeah, everything looks good. Let's head back.
Okay, let's analyze this code now. So we're starting off with a new variable. We're calling it.
So while he's analyzing that, I just wanted to neaten this up here.
So the first time
Now it looks a bit better.
Opens up the calculator, the value of new line will be set to true. That means that the moment the user starts clicking or starts typing on that calculator, you're going to start on a new line. That means whatever is there is going to be blanked out, and whatever is there when the user starts off is the 0. Okay, then if the new line value is set to true, then when the user types something, blank everything else and just place in whatever.
So let me re-explain what he's saying here. You see, this way of doing it that we have inside of the if statement is the same as the original way we had down here, where it would remove everything in the box and then only put in the digit that we typed. Now down here in the else statement, we have the new way of doing it, where it just adds on the digit to what we already have inside. So I assume what he's going to do here is, on the first time this runs, he's going to run this if statement here, and then inside of this if statement he's going to disable new line. So he's going to set new line equal to false here, so that the second time we press a button, it's going to do the adding one instead of the replacing one. I hope that makes sense, but yeah, let's follow along with the video.
User has typed. But if new line is not true, then store whatever is there plus whatever the user has typed in. Concatenate whatever the user has typed in to whatever is already there. That means don't blank out whatever is there. There's just one last thing we need to do there. We're going to need to set new line to false.
Okay, so that's exactly what we explained just now. New line, we set it equal to false. And we're setting it equal to false inside of this if statement's brackets here. So what's going to happen is, the first time this runs, the first time we click a button, it's going to run this code because new line is equal to true. And then inside of that code, it sets new line equal to false. So the second time we click a button, it's going to run this code instead. Let's head back.
And the reason we're doing this is, after the first time, new line is now false. So our app will know that as long as new line is false, it will keep continuing.
And let's go test this. So let's zoom in. So now we have a 0 here, and it's the first time we're pressing a button. So if I press 5, it will get rid of that 0. But now it's set that new line variable to false. So if I press another button, now it's adding it on instead of replacing what was already there.
our next entries, the next buttons that we type. Okay, let's try this code out. Refresh, boom, and it worked. Works like a dream. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it to you to add the event handlers for the remainder digits, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and the 0.
Okay, so let's go down and start the next lesson. Let me zoom out here.
The next thing we're going to do is to add the event handler for the AC button. Now looking at our calculator, as the user types in digits, we need to determine what exactly is going to happen when the user types in or clicks the AC button. When the user clicks the cancel button, what exactly happens?
Okay, so I think that AC button is what clears the screen.
Currently will be removed.
I'm not sure, I never used the calculator for a long time.
0. So this is a fairly simple and straightforward event handler to implement. I'm going to start by removing any additional spaces, and then I'm going to create a new function. I'm going to call it button AC pressed. This one receives.
Okay, so down here outside of this function, remember you need to find the closing curly bracket for the function. Outside of that, sorry, I accidentally deleted it. Outside of that, you want to create a new function, and we'll call it AC pressed. Again, notice I'm naming mine different from what he named his, but it doesn't really matter as long as you remember the name you typed in. And in here, we're just going to set this equal to 0, I think. So I'm going to type it out ahead of time. We just copy that document.get element by ID input box dot value is equal to digit, and we paste it down here. And instead of setting it equal to digit, we set it equal to 0. So let's save this and go check if that's what he does.
No parameters. And it does two things. The first thing is that it sets the value of input box to 0. Get element by ID. Set this guy's value equals 0, and also it resets.
So we also want to set that new line variable back to true. The reason why we're setting it back to true is because this button basically resets the calculator.
New line to true. Which will say to our app.
By resetting the calculator, I mean we're setting everything back to its default values. So up here right at the top, when we created the input box, its default value was 0, and the new line value is set to true by default. So we're setting both of those back to their default values no matter what's typed in it right now.
That now the cancel button has been pressed, a 0 will be displayed, and when the user starts typing again, then that 0 needs to be removed. Simple as that. Let's test it out. Oh, but before we do, remember we got the event handler, but we haven't created the event. On click is equal to.
So up here on the AC, table data, we want to put on click, and we set it equal to that function we just created, AC pressed. I'm just going to copy it from here and paste it there. And we'll hit save. And let me go test this. And if we hit this AC button down here, it will clear that. Okay, so let's continue.
Button AC pressed. Don't forget the brackets. This is a common error where people forget.
Also, one thing you want to remember here is when you put a function inside of this on-click thing here, you want to include the brackets with it. This is a mistake I made recently. I forgot to put the brackets in, and it took me a while to figure out why that wasn't working.
You have to call the brackets, and the code doesn't work, because if you don't call the brackets, then JavaScript won't call your function. Okay, let's try this guy out. Refresh, cancel.
And the reason why I specifically mentioned you need to add the brackets here is because if you've ever worked with another language like Python or something before, when you're connecting one function to another function, you usually skip out those brackets because you're not calling it here, you're only calling it when that button is pressed. But in HTML, you do need to include those brackets. Sorry, in JavaScript.
Some digits, cancel. Awesome. Okay, so now we've got the event handler for when any of the digit buttons is pressed, and also for when the AC button is pressed. Now our app is going to start to get a lot more complicated from this point going forward, because we're going to be adding a couple more event handlers. So the code is also going to start getting a little more complicated. So it makes sense at this stage, before we move forward, to clean up this code and add some comments. Now I've already done this here, where I'm declaring the new line variable. In this line, you can see at the end of the line I've put in what is known as a comment. A comment starts with 2 forward slashes. This is one type of comment. It's 2 forward slashes, and then I've put in some text. Now this text that I've put in here, Boolean variable determines if the next thing the user types should be on a new line. This is not for JavaScript. This is for me as the coder. This comment line, as you can see, is grayed out, which means that this line is invisible to JavaScript. JavaScript is just going to ignore this and move on. So at the end of this statement, JavaScript is going to move on. Then I've also added another comment here.
Okay, so I'm going to end this live stream here, and then we'll do a part 2 the same way we did for all the other lessons. I know this was a short one, but I just woke up a couple of hours ago, so I need to get started with some stuff. And yeah, when you're creating a comment like he shows here, I'm just going to show you that quickly. It's the last thing we'll do. You want to click on a new line here anywhere. So let me just put a new line up here. And you press Control and /, and VS Code will automatically put that comment in for you. And in here you can type whatever you want. It's not part of the code, it's only for you to read. And the reason why you use comments is to document what you're doing here. So if this code had like 1,000 lines of code, you're going to quickly forget why you made each function. So for example, here above this digit button pressed, we can say this is what runs when we press a digit. And remember, since this doesn't run, it's only for you to read, so you can type whatever you want in here. Now you'll notice that this comment has 2 slashes here. That's because it's a JavaScript comment. If I went into the HTML here and I did the same thing, so Control and /, it'll make a completely different type of comment here. Each programming language has its own way of doing comments. So in HTML, we have to type the comment in between of these things here. So I'm going to get rid of that, and we'll leave this comment down here, it's fine. Let's just put it right above the function. And yeah, I'm going to end this live stream here. We'll do a part 2 either later on today or tomorrow. So I'll see you guys then.